Hello. I am very glad you found this place. Perhaps today has been a long day for you, a day where your mind had to race against time, with numbers, with nameless responsibilities. And now, when night has fallen, you might still feel the echo of that rush lingering in your chest. But here, in this audio space, there is no destination to reach. There is no task to complete. You have reached the finish line. If you are looking for a place to put aside the burden of control, to listen to gentle scientific stories and fall asleep, then you are in the right place. Welcome to Sleep Decoding. Find the most comfortable position. It could be lying on your back, letting your spine stretch completely on the mattress, or lying on your side, curling up in a warm blanket. Allow your shoulders to drop. Loosen your jaw muscles. And let gravity do the rest of the work. Take a deep breath. Feel the cool air entering your lungs, and breathe out, pushing all the dust of today out. Tonight, we will not talk about distant stars or deep oceans. We will talk about a mysterious phenomenon occurring right inside your skull. A phenomenon that perhaps, at least once in your life, you have experienced without even knowing. It is the story of human limits, about the fragile boundary between waking and sleeping, about the moments when the brain decides to power off without your permission. People call it white sleep, or in international scientific language, microsleep. Let me take you into a familiar scene. Imagine you are driving on an endless highway at night. Outside the window, the world has plunged into darkness. Only your headlights cut a yellowish beam of light through the pitch-black night. The space inside the car is very quiet. Only the steady hum of the engine. Hum, hum, hum. The sound of tires rubbing against the asphalt creates a swishing, soothing and hypnotic sound. The white road lines just zoom past. Zoom, zoom, zoom. They appear and then disappear under the car in an unchanging rhythm, like a metronome. You look at the straight road ahead. There are no curves. There are no traffic lights. Only repetition. This repetition creates a strange psychological state that psychologists call highway hypnosis. Gradually, you feel your eyelids becoming heavy, not a normal heaviness. It is like someone is hanging small weights on your eyelashes. You try to open your eyes wide. You blink hard. You shake your head to shoo away the sleepiness. You tell yourself, just a few more kilometers. I must stay alert. You turn the music up a bit. You roll down the window to let the cold wind slap your face. You think that you have won. You think that you have pushed back the sleepiness. But then, something happens. Something very subtle, very silent. In a brief moment, perhaps lasting only 2 seconds, 5 seconds, or 10 seconds, the world disappears. Your eyes may still be staring straight ahead. Your hands still grip the steering wheel. Your foot still rests on the gas pedal. But your mind is no longer there. Your brain has performed a circuit breaker trip. It stops recording images. It stops processing sounds. It creates a gap in your timeline. And then, startle. You jolt awake. Your heart is pounding. You realize your car has traveled a distance of a few hundred meters that you have absolutely no memory of. You do not remember how you drove through that stretch of road. You do not remember if you avoided any cars. That is microsleep. It is not a dreamy sleep with beautiful images. It is an absence. It is a hole in reality. Like a film reel running that gets a segment cut out, or like a scratched vinyl record where the needle skips over a piece of music. You are at the first second, and suddenly, you find yourself at the 10th second. The space in between is nothingness. Why does this happen? Why does a perfect biological machine like a human have such a dangerous technical error? Actually, it is not an error. It is a feature. It is an ultimate and somewhat cruel defense mechanism of biology. When you push yourself to work too hard, when you refuse your body's right to rest, the brain will no longer negotiate with you. It will seize your control. It says, if you do not actively shut down, I will force you to shut down. And thus, microsleep appears. In this noisy modern world, we often view microsleep as an enemy, as the cause of accidents, as a sign of weakness. But tonight, through the lens of understanding, let us view it as a reminder, an urgent whisper from your body. It is saying, you are human. You are not a perpetual machine. You need to be recharged. Those unconscious blinks, those uncontrolled nods, they are the desperate efforts of neurons screaming for peace. We often fear that void, but actually, that void is exactly where the body is trying to save you from complete exhaustion. Now try to visualize that feeling again, but in a safer context. You are no longer driving. You are no longer sitting in front of a computer screen with glaring blue light. You are lying here, on this soft bed, in this gentle darkness. You do not need to fight the weight of your eyelids anymore. Recall the feeling when those invisible weights pulled your eyelids down. Before, you had to use strength to lift them up, but now you can let them fall. Let them close. How pleasant that feeling is. That heaviness, when accepted, transforms into an embrace. Microsleep when you are driving is dangerous, but microsleep when you are lying in bed is the door leading to deep sleep. Those are the first footsteps of the brain as it begins to leave the real world to enter the world of recovery. Allow those voids to appear. Allow your consciousness to flicker, like a lamp running out of oil. Do not try to light it up again. Let it fade out. In the next part, we will go deep inside the brain to see what actually happens during those moments of memory loss. We will see a strange scene, a city of light turning off the lights one neighborhood at a time, while other neighborhoods are still trying to operate. A silent struggle between will and instinct. But before we get there, take a minute to feel the stillness right now. There is no engine noise. There are no road lines. There is only the sound of your breath, in and out, steady, slow. You are safe. Now leave that deserted highway. Shrink your field of vision. Pass through the skin, pass through the skull, to enter your most private universe, the brain. Imagine your brain is like a giant city viewed from above at night. A brilliant metropolis with 86 billion residents. That is 86 billion neurons. When you are awake, this city is a sea of light. Electric currents run through neural avenues, connecting one region to another. Information travels at the speed of supercars. The noise of thoughts, of emotions, of the senses, creates a noisy and brilliant symphony. The entire city is on. We often think that sleep is like a master switch. When you sleep, someone flips the circuit breaker, and bam, the entire city turns off the lights simultaneously. But modern neuroscience has shown that that is not how the brain operates when it is exhausted. Before full sleep sets in, a strange and eerie phenomenon occurs. Scientists call it local sleep. When you try to stay awake for too long, when you force this city to keep its lights on continuously despite energy limits, a silent strike begins to brew. Neurons are not perpetual motion machines. They need rest to regenerate energy and detoxify. And if you, the mayor of the city, do not allow them to rest, they will rest on their own. Observe the city inside your head closely right now. You are still trying to keep your eyes open. You are still trying to focus. The central command center is still issuing orders. Stay awake, stay awake. But in the suburbs, the lights are starting to fade out. Not all at once, but one neighborhood at a time. First is the visual cortex, the area located at the back of the head responsible for processing images. The neurons here are too exhausted from processing billions of pixels from your eyes all day long. They start flickering and fade out. This is exactly why during extreme drowsiness or during a microsleep moment, your eyes remain wide open. The retina still receives light, but you see nothing at all. The movie camera is still running, but the screen in the control room has turned off. You look through objects as if staring into the void. The image processing neighborhood has gone to sleep, abandoning the rest of the city that is still awake. Next is the auditory cortex. The noise around you, the sound of a spinning fan, traffic, or someone talking, suddenly becomes distant, echoing as if from a tunnel. The sound processing neurons are slowly lowering the volume. They are closing the windows. They refuse to receive any further signals. The world of sound fades, and sinks into a soothing mist. But the frightening, and also the most astonishing thing, is that while the sensory areas are asleep, the motor cortex may still be awake. This is the area controlling your limbs. It operates on inertia. That is why a driver experiencing microsleep can still keep their foot on the gas pedal. A sentry experiencing microsleep can still stand upright. A person writing can still hold a pen to trace meaningless squiggly lines. A part of the city remains lit, operating like a soulless machine, while the soul of the city, awareness, has sunk into darkness. This local sleep phenomenon is a humble reminder of human limitations. It shows that your willpower is not king. Biology is king. When neurons decide to sleep, they will sleep. They disconnect from the general network, switching to slow-wave activity, even when you are standing, walking, or talking, and laughing. In the noisy world out there, local sleep is a risk. It creates dangerous gaps in attention. But here, right now, as you lie safely on this soft bed, local sleep is a gentle guide. You do not need to wait for the entire brain to power off at once. That is sometimes very difficult for a stressed mind. Instead, allow your city to dim its lights slowly, one neighborhood at a time. Try to visualize that right now. Direct your attention to your legs. Imagine the neurons controlling your legs are turning off the lights. Click. Your legs become heavy, sinking deep into the mattress. This neighborhood has gone to sleep. Move up to your hands. Your fingers loosen, no longer gripping anything. Click. This neighborhood has also turned off its lights. Move up to your eyes. The final images in your mind are fading. Click. Soothing darkness envelops. You do not need to force yourself to sleep immediately. Just allow each small part of your body, each small group of your mind, permission to unplug. Let the darkness spread, slowly, spreading from one region to another, like night falling over each street after a long, bustling day. Silence is spreading. The final lights are fading out, and you are gradually becoming whole in the darkness. Why do the lights in the city of the brain turn off? Why are your eyelids as heavy as lead? Why does your consciousness want to drift away? It is not a random feeling. It is not a sign of weakness either. It is the voice of chemistry. It is the weight of an undeniable biological law. Let's go deep inside, down to the smallest nerve cells. In every second you are awake, in every thought you create, in every movement, no matter how small, of your finger, your biological machine is burning fuel. Life is an energy-consuming flame, and like any flame in the real world, when it burns, it leaves behind ash. In your brain, this type of biological ash has a very beautiful scientific name: adenosine. Imagine, right at the center of your mind, there is a giant and invisible hourglass. Every morning, when the first sunlight touches your eyes, that hourglass is flipped over. The top part is full of the sands of energy, of alertness, of intentions. But the very moment you get out of bed, the first grains of adenosine sand begin to fall. Rush, rush, one grain at a time. Silently, steadily. Nothing can stop it. When you focus on work, the sand falls faster. When you are worried or stressed, the sand falls more rapidly. Every firing neuron births another grain of sand. They weave between the synapses. They float in the cerebrospinal fluid. They seek out docking stations, the receptors, to latch onto, like dust from time gradually clinging to the gears of a sophisticated machine. This accumulation creates an invisible force that sleep scientists call sleep pressure. This pressure acts exactly like the Earth's gravity. In the morning, the layer of sand is thin, the pressure is light, and you feel buoyant. But when the sun is high, then leans toward the west, the layer of sand at the bottom of the hourglass thickens bit by bit. It begins to weigh heavily on your shoulders. It clings to your legs, making your steps slow. It covers your thoughts in a thick fog. It pulls your eyelids down with a stubborn persistence. At some point, the amount of adenosine reaches a critical threshold. The hourglass is full. There is no space left. At this moment, your body issues an ultimate command, a non-negotiable ultimatum. The system is overloaded with ash, must clean up immediately. And the only way, the unique way for the brain to sweep away this layer of adenosine ash, is sleep. Only when you sleep does the glymphatic system in the brain open up. The cerebrospinal fluid floods in and washes it all away, returning a clean hourglass to you the next morning. But we modern humans are stubborn creatures. We often refuse to obey the commands of that hourglass. We want to hack the system. We want to steal more time from the night. And what are our weapons? Coffee, tea, stimulants containing caffeine. Caffeine is the most brilliant imposter in the natural world. Under a microscope, the molecular structure of caffeine looks almost exactly like adenosine. It is like a skillfully crafted skeleton key. When you drink a cup of coffee, billions of caffeine molecules flood into the brain. They race against adenosine. They rush to the neural receptors and quickly sit in there first. They seal the locks. They block the path, preventing adenosine from latching on. Imagine this is like taking a piece of wood to block the neck of the hourglass, or like building a dam across a river. The brain no longer senses the signal of adenosine. It is deceived. It thinks, "Oh, there is no more ash. I still have plenty of energy." Your heart beats faster. You feel artificially alert. You think you have defeated the sleepiness. But remember this well, a cold truth of biology. The sand is still falling. Even if you block the neck of the hourglass, the flame of life still burns, and ash is still produced. The amount of adenosine continues to accumulate behind that caffeine wall. It dams up, it rises high, it forms a giant mass of pressure, pitch black and heavy, waiting for the moment of release. And when the effect of caffeine wears off, when your liver has broken down all those imposter molecules, what happens? The dam breaks. The piece of wood blocking the hourglass pops out. It is not a small stream, but a flood of adenosine crashing down all at once. All the fatigue accumulated over the past 4 or 5 hours now pours into the neural receptors in a split second. That is exactly why microsleep is so dangerous. It does not come gradually. It comes like a system crash. It is the moment the brain is flooded with sleep chemicals and decides to trip the circuit breaker immediately, regardless of whether you are driving, in a meeting, or standing. It no longer asks for your opinion. That sudden shutdown, although terrifying when we are trying to control high-speed machines, is ultimately a loving act of protection by the body. It is like a strict mother pulling the plug when she sees her child playing with a sparking outlet. It is telling you, little human, you cannot cheat biology forever. You need to be cleansed. You need to rest. And now, the good news is that you are no longer on the highway. The battle with the hourglass is over. Tonight, you do not need to use caffeine to build a dam against the flood anymore. You do not need to fight against this eternal law anymore. Listen to your body right now. Do you feel that weight? Does it feel like your limbs are sinking gradually into the mattress? Do not detest it. Do not fear it. That is adenosine. That is the loyal old friend returning to lull you to sleep. That weight is not a burden. It is the softest blanket that nature covers you with. Imagine every cell in your brain is being covered by this fine, warm layer of sand. The sand is filling the gaps of anxiety. The sand is slowing down the rhythm of hurried thoughts. The sand is softening the sharp edges of the mind. It is whispering, enough, worked enough today. The ash needs to be washed away. Surrender to that weight. It is a sweet surrender. Do not try to lift your eyelids anymore. Let the gravity of adenosine pull them down. Closing your eyes is opening the door to recovery. The deeper you sink into this soft layer of sand, the safer you are. You are being protected by your own most ancient, most wise biological mechanism. And when that layer of sand covers everything, it is also when the concept of time begins to dissolve. The memories of today begin to fade, making way for another land, the land of dreams. When the grains of adenosine sand have filled the hourglass of the mind, and when that soothing weight has pulled you down deep, a next miracle will happen. A thing that perhaps you have experienced thousands of times in your life but never truly noticed. That is the disappearance of time. We often think that time is a continuous flow, an unbroken straight line. This second follows that second. This breath follows that breath. We believe that as long as the eyes are open, as long as the heart is beating, then the brain is still faithfully recording every moment of reality. But the science of sleep tells a different story, a story about interruption. Deep inside your temporal lobe, there is a tiny seahorse-shaped structure called the hippocampus. Imagine the hippocampus is the most diligent secretary in your library of memories. Throughout the long day, this secretary works tirelessly. He holds in his hand a pen and a notebook. Every time you see a face, the pen runs. Every time you hear a song, the pen runs. Every time you feel the sweetness of a cup of tea or the anxiety of work, the pen runs again. He converts the fleeting moments of the present into eternal ink lines of long-term memory. Thanks to him, you know who you are, what you just did, and your life story has a tight connection. But the hippocampus is a creature extremely sensitive to the layer of sand adenosine that we just spoke of. When sleep pressure rises high, when energy is depleted, that old secretary begins to get tired. His hands tremble, and then, in the very moment of microsleep, or the moment you flicker into sleep, he decides to do a bold thing. Put the pen down. In those moments, the outside world still goes on. The earth still rotates. The cars out there still run. The person lying next to you might still be tossing and turning, but inside your notebook of memories is a white page. No data is recorded. The video camera of consciousness might still have the lens open, but the record button has been turned off. Try to recall that shivering, yet also eerie feeling. You are watching a movie. You blink, and suddenly, the character on the screen has aged, or the scene has switched to a completely different place. You are driving at the 10th kilometer. Blink once. You find yourself at the 15th kilometer. Where did those 5 minutes go? Where did that segment of life disappear to? It did not go anywhere. It simply was not written down. You have passed through time without touching it. You have performed a teleportation in consciousness, leapfrogging from point A to point B without needing to go through the distance in between. A time gap lying right in the middle of reality. In the bustling modern life, this temporary amnesia often brings fear. We fear losing control. We fear missing out. We want to grasp, want to remember, want to control every single second and minute. When finding ourselves forgetting a conversation, or not remembering where we put the keys because of sleepiness, we often blame ourselves. But tonight, here, in the absolute safety of this bed, I want to invite you to view this time circuit breaker under a different light. View this forgetfulness as a grace, a compassion of the body for your soul. Look at the hippocampus secretary in your head right now. He has worked for 16 straight hours. He has recorded millions of gigabytes of information. The noises, the pressures, the numbers, the responsibilities. Today's notebook is thick with words. The act of him putting the pen down, stopping recording, is not a system error. It is the whisper, "Master, enough. Today has ended. You do not need to carry any more memories." And tonight, you have the right to allow that forgetfulness to take place. You do not need to remember the feeling of the blanket touching your skin. You do not need to analyze the sound of the wind whistling outside the door crack. You do not need to store the thought that just flashed through your mind. Let it drift away. Imagine memories right now are like clouds drifting across the night sky. You just need to lie there, watch them drift past, and vanish into the darkness. You do not need to take a picture of that cloud. You do not need to keep it. Oblivion right now is a natural sedative. Every time a piece of memory is blurred out, a burden on your shoulders is lifted. Every time you startle and realize you just went missing for a few seconds, smile. That is a sign showing that you are being healed. The secretary is turning off the old desk lamp. The door to the library of memories is closing. Click. The books of today are being neatly arranged on the shelf. The space inside your mind is becoming larger, emptier, and quieter. Now, you are no longer bound by the past, what has been written in the notebook, or the future, the unwritten pages. You are floating in an indefinite void where time no longer has any meaning. And right in this soothing void, when human reason has slept peacefully, we find the connection with our wild friends, creatures out there who are also trying to survive on the boundary between waking and sleeping. Let forgetfulness lead our way out to the open sea. When the grains of adenosine sand have filled the mind, another strange phenomenon will occur. Have you ever wondered? Why is it that when nodding off, we do not remember anything? Why do we startle awake and not know where the past 5 minutes went? The answer lies deep inside the temporal lobe of the brain, at a tiny curved structure shaped like a seahorse. In medicine, people call it the hippocampus. The hippocampus plays an extremely important role for humans. It is the memory processing center. Imagine the hippocampus is like an information filter funnel. Everything you see and hear during the day is short-term memory. The task of the hippocampus is to catch that information, encode it, and transfer it to long-term memory so you can recall it later. To put it more simply, the hippocampus is the secretary recording your life. If this secretary works, you will remember everything. But if he stops the pen, memories will not be created. The problem lies in the fact that the hippocampus is a very expensive part in terms of energy. It consumes a lot of resources to operate. Therefore, when your body is flooded with adenosine and falls into a state of exhaustion, the brain will execute a harsh energy-saving process. It cuts the power source of parts not yet essential for immediate survival. And the first victim is the hippocampus. In the microsleep moment, when you are dozing off, the brain orders the hippocampus, stop recording immediately. At this moment, your eyes might still be open. You still see the road. You still hear the music. The brain areas processing vision and hearing are still barely functioning. But the connection line to the memory has been pulled. The hippocampus secretary has put down the pen. The videotape recording your life is still running, but the record button has been turned off. That is the reason why you feel like you just teleported. You are at the 10th minute. The hippocampus lights go out. You drive unconsciously for 5 minutes. The hippocampus turns the lights back on at the 15th minute. The 5 minutes in between are absolutely not recorded in the brain. It is a white page. You have walked through time without leaving any trace in your memory. In busy life, this temporary amnesia often makes us scared. We fear losing control. We fear missing out. But tonight, let's view the suspension of the hippocampus as a biological grace. The stopping of the hippocampus is the body's way of telling you, enough. Memory is full. You do not need to load any more information. Tonight, you have the right to allow that secretary to rest. You do not need to remember the feeling of the blanket. You do not need to analyze the sound of the wind outside the window. You do not need to store any worries in long-term memory anymore. Let the hippocampus sleep peacefully. Let the memories of today pass you by like clouds passing through the night sky. No need to keep them. No need to take pictures of them. Oblivion right now is the most soothing sedative. When the hippocampus turns off the lights, the door connecting to reality also closes. And that is when your mind is liberated from the constraints of time to drift to more distant lands, where our wild friends are also trying to find a way to rest amidst the vast ocean. We have been on a very long journey tonight, from the deserted highway with hypnotic road lines, going deep into the city of neurons, turning off lights, neighborhood by neighborhood, drifting along the flow of heavy grains of adenosine sand, and flying over vast oceans where creatures are sleeping fitful sleeps. And now, the trip has ended. It is time to return to the only reality that matters right now. You, right here, in this room. Recall what we have explored. That feeling of heavy eyelids you are having, that is not hateful fatigue. It is the soothing layer of adenosine sand enveloping you, protecting you from the noise of the world, the feeling of an absent mind or forgetfulness. That is not a loss of control. That is the hippocampus secretary turning off the lights to go to sleep, so you can be at peace, not having to carry the burden of memories into your dreams. Those microsleeps, those unconscious blinks that once made us afraid when driving, now, in the safety of this bed, they become devoted guides. Do not fight them anymore. Microsleep is the staircase going down. Every time your mind wanders, you are stepping down one step. Every time a thought leaves you, you step down a little deeper. Every time your breathing becomes slower, you are getting closer to the door of deep sleep. Tell your body, we are safe. We are not dolphins. We are not penguins. We do not need to keep watch. You can shut down the entire system. Turn off the lights in the visual cortex. Turn off the lights in the motor cortex. Turn off the lights in the anxiety center. Imagine your body right now is like an old wooden boat anchored by the riverbank. The anchor rope holding the boat to the shore. The rope of consciousness, of responsibility, of time, is being untied, slowly, unhurriedly. The last knot has slipped loose. The boat begins to drift freely, leaving the rigid shore of reality, drifting gently into the misty river of the unconscious. No more direction to determine. No more destination to reach. No more oars to hold. Only soothing drifting remains. Let the darkness embrace you. Darkness is not scary. Darkness is the softest velvet blanket of the universe. It is here to heal the neurons that burned brightly for you throughout the past day. Now, take a deep breath, receive this peace, and breathe out, letting go of the very last bit of will remaining. Everything has turned off. Everything is quiet. You have arrived home. Sleep. Sleep. Good night.